We hear people talk about love. I love this, and I love that. I love my car. I love my house. I love my job. I love to just lay around. I love food. I love my wife and children. Sure wish they loved me. I love my husband, at least when he does what I tell him to do. I love Johnny. He sure is cute. And I love Sally. She's sexy. We talk about love, but there's another kind of love which is far different than what we normally refer to as love. I call it eternal love because it's the kind of love that the eternal has. In the New Testament, it is called agape love, which means to love someone or something without condition, unconditional love, regardless of the conditions. This is the kind of love our Creator has. He loves the world. He loves us. Even though we are sinners, He still loves us. Of course, it's His desire that we change, but nevertheless, He loves us while we are yet sinners. And for us, that's hard to understand. Most husbands and wives don't even have this kind of love, because if they did, there wouldn't be so many divorces. Do we as true Christians have this kind of love? Eternal love. And if so, how does it work? Do we remember God's great love for us? The Father giving His Son to die a terrible death on the stake, that we might have the opportunity to be redeemed from the curse of the law, which is eternal death. That's the greatest demonstration of the Father's love to His creation. That's eternal love. But again, we as God's people, do we have any of that kind of love? We're supposed to. If we have God's Holy Spirit, we're supposed to exhibit, at least to some degree, that kind of love. Now, I know we don't have the full measure of God's Holy Spirit, as He does, but nonetheless, we should be able to exhibit some eternal love or godly love. In 1 Corinthians, the Apostle Paul addresses this kind of love, something which the Corinthians didn't have. And it's there for us as modern day Christians to look back on and to examine ourselves. Eternal love will conquer all bickering and bring blessings to our lives. Eternal love builds fellowship and it restores faith. Eternal love draws together and brings us all, as sinners, to the point of salvation, eventually. Eternal love has power to it, and it can bring power to our lives if we let it and are not constantly grieving the Holy Spirit. If we don't have eternal love, then nothing we do has any benefit to us or anyone else. No matter what we do in life, if it is not done with the love of God in our hearts, it will profit nothing. In 1 Corinthians 13, I'll get there in a minute. First Corinthians 13. And let's start, well, that's 15, not 13. Let's start in verse 1. 1 Corinthians 13, 1. Paul tells us, though I speak with tongues of men and of angels, and have not love, I am become as sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. You can speak 30 different languages, folks, and even the language of angels. However, if you don't use that knowledge with eternal love for the benefit of the church and your fellow man, it's useless. It's worthless. It's nothing more than chimes blowing in the wind. Verse 2, and though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could move mountains and have not love, I am nothing. So again, you can understand all that's going to happen in the future of what's going on in the world. You can have faith so strong you can tell a mountain to move from one place to another. But if all that knowledge and faith is not coupled with eternal love for a good and right reason to the service of God, you might as well be an invalid, for it will profit you nothing. Verse 3, and though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, and have not love, it profits me nothing. So, you can give thousands upon thousands of dollars to the work and to the church. But if you're doing it only in an effort to impress God and man, only to make a show, it's not going to profit you anything. Because, folks, you can't buy God. You can't buy your salvation. It has to be given with eternal love. I mean, speaking of your money and your resources. It has to be given with a true, deep-down concern for other people. It has to be given selfishly for others, that they might come to the truth too. No matter how you speak, you are weak without eternal love. That true, deep-down concern for others. No matter what your words are, they are worthless without eternal love. No matter how sincere, you will fail without this kind of love. Spiritual gifts without the right kind of love, he tells us, are nothing. Knowing the future, understanding all mysteries, the gift of knowledge, even the knowledge of God's will, and faith to move mountains, are nothing. Sacrifice without eternal love is nonsense. Bestowing all your goods to feed the poor and giving your body to be burned, as it tells us, is all nonsense without the right kind of love. Starting in verse 4 here, Paul tells us the practical effects of this kind of love. Love suffers long, he says, and is kind. Love envies not. Eternal love, that is, vaunts not itself, and it's not puffed up. It doesn't behave itself unseemly. It seeks not its own, and it is not easily provoked, and it thinks no evil. Is that the kind of love that you and I have? If not, we need to be working on it. It rejoices not in iniquity, it tells us, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, and endures all things. Love, that is true eternal love, never fails. But prophecies, it tells us, will fail. And tongues or different languages, they will fail. They shall cease, and knowledge shall vanish away. But eternal love, if we have it and use it, will never let us down. It will never fail. It will never fail us. If we could only learn to do everything we do in the perimeters of God's true love, it would be amazing the things that we could accomplish as a church and in our own personal lives also. True love suffers long. It puts up with a lot of things. Peter asked Jesus in Matthew 18 and 21, how often shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Till 7 times? Jesus' answer was not 7 times, but 70 times 7. The emphasis being, of course, that you always forgive your brother. And I know in my own personal life, that's sometimes hard to do. Forgiving people who has done you wrong and who has used you sometimes takes years to do. It's not something that you just immediately do. It's amazing how we let such small things shake us and break us sometimes. This eternal love, or agape love, is always kind. It's always on the positive side. It has no envy in it, for envy always springs from catering to oneself, being selfish. It vaunts not itself. It tells us it is not puffed up, does not behave itself unseemly, seeks not its own, is not easily provoked, and not irritable. And right there is where we fail so often. For a lot of people, wear their feelings on their sleeves. They're easily provoked. As the old saying goes, eternal love, well, I mean, that's, as the old saying goes, people wear their feelings on their sleeves, I'm sorry. But eternal love thinks no evil. And right there is where I personally fail so often. I've mentioned many times how in my mind I've wrapped that short piece of 2x4 around a lot of people's heads. But if you have the right kind of love, you will hardly notice when other people do you wrong. Eternal love rejoices not in iniquity. It is never glad about injustice. As a matter of fact, it upholds true justice. It rejoices in the truth, and it bears all things. It believes all things, which means instead of looking for faults, it always expects the best of other people. In verse 8 through 13 here in 1 Corinthians 13, it shows us the permanency of eternal love. Verse 8 tells us that prophecy can fail. Tongues or languages will cease, and even special gifts of knowledge will disappear. But eternal love will always remain. It's always there. It's permanent. And verse 13 tells us, now abides faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love, eternal love. Over in Galatians 5:22 and 23, it tells us what the fruit of the Spirit is. The spirit of this love, this godly love. It is joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, and temperance, which it says, against such there is no law. There is no law against those things. So how do we get this kind of love? How do we get this kind of love? We have to give ourselves wholly to follow God, fully to follow God, and grieve not His Holy Spirit, which we all do on occasion. Grieve not His Holy Spirit, which He has placed in us, and in doing so, it will produce that same kind of love, eternal love, within us.